My name is Daniel, and this all started on a quiet Saturday afternoon I never saw coming. The kind of day where nothing seems special, but it ends up flipping your entire life upside down. My wife Natalie had gone out of town to attend a family function, something I was supposed to be part of. I bailed. I didn't even pretend to be interested. Work had been draining me for weeks, and the last thing I wanted to do was sit around with her cousins talking about vacation plans and gluten-free desserts. I just needed one peaceful weekend to myself. That was the plan. Before we get into the sweet part, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you're watching us for the first time, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification so you never miss any new story. So there I was, sprawled out in bed, trying to catch up on some emails on my laptop. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan, and I felt like I could finally breathe. Somewhere between replying to a client and checking my calendar, I realized I needed to jot something down. Nightstand, only to discover it had dried up. Classic. I gave it a few taps, even tried scribbling on the back of a receipt, but nothing. Dead is my motivation to go to that family event now. I could have easily gotten up and walked over to the desk across the room. It would have taken, 10 seconds? But if you've ever been in that mental zone where even lifting your head feels like climbing Everest, you'll understand. Instead, I started scanning my immediate surroundings like a lazy detective. The top drawer of my nightstand was a lost cause. Nothing but old receipts, a spare charging cable, and, weirdly, a guitar pick from college. But then my eyes drifted over to Natalie's side of the bed. Her drawer, I'd never actually gone through it before. It was her space. Neat, orderly, a little shrine of her personality. A couple of notebooks, a hand lotion she swore was made of magic, a few hair ties, and a stack of old cards. As I rummaged gently, hoping to stumble across a pen, my hand brushed something unexpected. A small rectangular box. I pulled it out, and immediately froze. It was a box of condoms. At first, my brain didn't even process it. I just blinked, holding it in my hand like it was something foreign. I hadn't seen a box like that in years. Natalie and I had been married for almost 8 years. We hadn't used protection in forever. It was always understood. We were exclusive, we were committed, and we were well past the condom phase. So what the hell was this doing here? The box slowly, almost afraid of what I'd find. One was missing. One single condom. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. My stomach turned. My thoughts raced so fast I couldn't even catch one to make sense of it. Why would Natalie need these? Who were they for? Certainly not me. Picking random fights and claiming she was too tired to talk? I had chalked it up to stress, maybe a phase. Now I wasn't so sure. I sat there on the bed, the box in my lap, staring at it like it held the answer to a riddle I didn't want to solve. Every part of me screamed to confront her, call her, demand the truth, but a quieter, sharper part of me held back. No, don't go in swinging with accusations. I'd made that mistake once before, years ago, when I misunderstood a text between Natalie and an old college friend. Turned out I was dead wrong back then. She never let me live it down. If I jumped the gun now, and this was somehow innocent, I'd destroy what little trust was left between us, but deep down I knew something was off. I couldn't ignore it. Instead, I did what any rational man trying not to fall apart would do. I took a photo of the condom box and put it back exactly the way I found it. Same angle, same stack of papers on top. I closed the drawer gently and leaned back against the headboard, trying to collect myself. There was a storm brewing in my chest, but I couldn't let it out yet. That night, I barely slept. Every little creak in the house felt suspicious. Every time my phone buzzed, it was her confessing something, anything, that would give me clarity, but it never came. When Natalie called the next morning to say she'd be staying an extra day with her aunt, I acted casual. Sounds good. Hope you're enjoying yourself. Attempt at baking a cake. All the while, I was planning my next move. By the afternoon, I was at an electronics store. Bought 2 tiny hidden cameras, ones you could stick in an air vent or behind a picture frame. I also grabbed a GPS tracker small enough to attach under her car's bumper. If she was up to something, I wanted to know exactly what, and not just because I needed proof. I needed to understand. Was this some long-standing thing? Was I completely blind to it? Or was I losing my grip on reality? I spent the rest of the weekend setting up. I installed one camera facing the bedroom door from the bookshelf and another facing the living room. Subtle, quiet, hidden in plain sight. I tested them both, using my phone to make sure they were transmitting properly. Then I snuck outside and attached the tracker to the undercarriage of Natalie's car while pretending to fix a loose bumper screw, just in case a neighbor was watching. When Natalie got home Sunday night, everything felt like a scene in a movie. I played it cool, smiled, kissed her on the cheek, and even asked about her trip. She told me stories from the weekend, laughed at her uncle's bad jokes, and went on about how good it felt to be with family. I watched her closely, her body language, her eyes. Nothing looked different. Maybe that was the scariest part. She seemed so normal, so unbothered. If she was hiding something, she was a hell of an actress. Part of me started to doubt myself again. Maybe I really had jumped to conclusions. I wanted to believe that so badly, but I also knew I couldn't let it go for the next few days. I checked the camera footage religiously. I tracked her movements on the GPS every time she left the house. Work, gym, grocery store, dinner with friends, nothing strange, everything added up. Everything looked normal, and yet the seed of doubt had already been planted. It grew quietly with every day that passed. I wish I could say I stopped obsessing, that I gave her the benefit of the doubt and moved on, but that box of condoms haunted me like a ghost. No matter how normal things seemed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I was chasing a truth I wasn't sure I wanted to find, but knew I couldn't ignore, because once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. On the surface, everything seemed perfectly fine. I'd wake up next to Natalie, brew coffee for the two of us, and talk about the day like nothing was wrong. We'd discuss the news, her work drama, and even laugh about some show we were rewatching together, but beneath the surface, I was wired tighter than I'd ever been. Every smile felt fake. Every goodnight kiss felt like a test I was failing. The cameras were recording. The GPS tracker was pinging her location like clockwork. I checked everything each night, usually around 1 a.m. when I was sure Natalie was asleep. The footage mostly showed her lounging in the living room, cooking dinner, or on video calls with friends and family. Her car went where she said it would. Nothing unusual. For a while it felt like maybe I really was being paranoid, but that box of condoms, it never left my mind. One evening, about 10 days after setting up the cameras, I got curious. I waited until Natalie left for her yoga class, something she never skipped. As soon as she was gone, I went back to the drawer. My heart was thudding harder than I wanted to admit. I opened it slowly, just to see, and yep, the box was still there, same position. I carefully lifted it out. One more was gone. I stared at the nearly empty box like it might explain itself. It didn't. There were now only 3 left. I knew I hadn't imagined the count the first time. I had taken a photo, documented it, and now one more was missing. I felt sick. My ears started ringing. I placed the box back carefully, hands trembling. My head spun with what this meant. While I had been doubting myself, giving her space, hoping I was wrong, she'd been doing it again. Whoever he was, he'd been back that night. I couldn't look her in the eye. She noticed. Of course she did. We were married. Even if she was lying to me, she could still tell when I was off. She asked if something was wrong, and I said I was just tired. She didn't press, and I didn't offer more. But inside I was burning. The next day, I adjusted the camera in our bedroom to get a clearer view of the bed. It was already catching movement, but I wanted a better angle just in case. I even swapped out the memory card for one with more space. I had no idea what I was preparing for, but I wasn't about to get caught off guard again. Every night after that, I checked the footage like a man on the edge. Hours of nothing. She watched Netflix, folded laundry, talked on the phone. No visitors, no red flags. GPS showed her commuting to work, running errands, meeting her mom for brunch. Everything added up except that stupid condom box. One night while reviewing footage, I started questioning myself again. Was I losing it? Was she hiding it that well? Maybe I'd missed the actual moment. Something happened. Maybe she was smart enough to do it while I was at work and disable the cameras. I didn't want to believe she'd go that far, but every part of me was unraveling. A week later, the breaking point came. I got home earlier than usual, one Thursday. I walked through the door and immediately noticed the scent of cologne, not mine. Something musky, expensive, unfamiliar. The kind that lingered in the air. My heart dropped. The lights were off, but I could hear the faint sound of movement upstairs. I didn't call out, didn't make a sound. I crept up the stairs like a ghost, and then I saw it. A shirt. A man's button-down shirt casually draped over the back of the dining chair. I stopped cold. My brain short-circuited for a second. I picked it up slowly, fingers trembling. There was a tag inside, a brand I'd never owned. It wasn't from a guest. It wasn't something I'd left. It was fresh. Someone had been here. I didn't burst into the room. I didn't kick down doors or start yelling. Instead, I turned on my phone and pulled up the camera app. I waited. If something was happening, I wanted proof. Cold, undeniable proof. But the camera in our bedroom wasn't transmitting. My heart skipped. I tried refreshing. Still nothing. I felt dizzy later. When Natalie got home, she acted like everything was normal. She kissed me on the cheek and asked about my day. I could barely answer. I just nodded, pretending. My mind was screaming. She hadn't expected me home early. That shirt, the cologne, the camera going offline. I didn't have to be Sherlock Holmes to put the pieces together that night. After she went to sleep, I checked the footage again. And this time, there was something new. A file from that afternoon, but corrupted. It cut off after 10 seconds. That had never happened before. The rest of the footage from the day looked fine, but that one video glitched blank, like someone had tampered with it. I was livid. My chest felt tight. The betrayal was no longer just a theory. It was happening right under my roof. I didn't sleep that night. My thoughts circled like vultures. I thought about every time I trusted her, every time she looked me in the eye and told me she loved me. I thought about the sacrifices I made for our relationship, how I'd changed cities for her job, how I helped her through her illness 2 years ago, how I always tried to be the stable one, and now, this. The next morning, I didn't say much. I watched her pour coffee, scroll her phone, hum along to a playlist, so casual, so normal. But I saw it differently now. It was all a performance. I started to feel like a stranger in my own home. That evening, I made the decision. I upgraded the cameras, hardwired them, added cloud backups, bought a secondary camera for the exterior door, just in case. I wasn't going to miss the next visit. If she was smart enough to tamper with footage, I had to be smarter. I even added a motion detector that pinged me directly if someone walked through certain parts of the house while I was gone. Over the next week, I waited, patiently. Calm on the outside. Inside, a storm. I barely spoke. Natalie asked once if I was okay, and I said, just tired. Work's been draining. She nodded and didn't dig deeper. The distance between us was now more than emotional. It was a canyon I had no interest in crossing. And then, it happened. On a Tuesday afternoon while I was at work, my phone buzzed. Motion detected, bedroom. I opened the camera feed, nothing. Then a few seconds later, another ping. Living room. I tapped the alert and saw a man entering the house behind Natalie. He was tall, dark hair, comfortable like he'd been there before. She didn't look nervous, she looked relaxed. Even happy. I felt everything inside me go cold. They talked. For a moment near the couch, then he leaned in and kissed her. Not some quick peck. This was slow, intimate. The kind of kiss you give when you know someone. My body went numb. I watched in real time as they made their way upstairs, and that was it. No more guessing, no more paranoia, no more second-guessing myself or giving the benefit of the doubt. Everything I feared was true, but I didn't react. I didn't call her. Didn't blow up her phone. Instead, I downloaded the footage, labeled the folder, and saved it to 3 different locations, because the truth was out now, and I wasn't going to let her pretend otherwise. After that day, something inside me changed. Watching Natalie with that man in our house had broken something permanent. But I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her that night, or the next day. Instead, I became quiet. Not the kind of quiet that fades with time, but the kind that settles in like fog. Heavy, constant. I was calculating, observing. Like a man waiting out a storm in silence while boarding up the windows. Natalie didn't notice the change. Not at first. She went about life the same way she always did. Smiling in the morning, texting away on her phone during dinner, humming. In the kitchen as she made tea, but now I watched her through a different lens. Every movement, every word felt like theater. Her phone buzzed more often. She turned it face down whenever I walked by. Before, I might have brushed it off. But now, every little gesture felt like evidence. I knew I needed more. Not just one recording. I wanted a pattern, a timeline. I needed her lies laid out so clearly that even she couldn't deny them. So, I kept collecting footage every time he came over, every touch, every word. I recorded the audio when I could, capturing snippets of their conversations. Once I heard her call him babe. Another time, she laughed and said, "It's easier than I thought." He hasn't suspected a thing. That one stung more than anything, because I had suspected. I just hadn't wanted it to be true. But it was true. And now I had everything I needed. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I made copies of all the videos and audio clips, backed them up in multiple places, cloud storage, a hidden USB drive taped under my desk, another one locked in my glove compartment. I wasn't being paranoid anymore. I was being smart. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about protecting myself from the emotional grenade I was about to throw into both our lives. A week passed, then 2, and each day I was more convinced I couldn't live like this. Pretending, smiling, sharing a bed with someone who was cheating with no remorse. like our marriage was just background noise to her new relationship. I thought about all the moments we'd shared, our wedding in the mountains, the night we adopted our dog Cooper, the plans we made for kids we never ended up having. They all felt like ghosts now. Silent echoes in a house that was no longer a home. I started sleeping in the guest room. I told her it was because of my back, that the mattress in there felt firmer. She didn't question it. She probably liked the space anyway. Maybe it gave her more room to text him at night without feeling guilty. Or maybe she never felt guilty at all. It's strange how someone can lie next to you for years and you never really know them. You think you do. You think love means truth. But love, I've learned, isn't always enough to keep someone loyal. Some people chase the thrill, others crave validation, and some, like Natalie, are simply good at pretending. One afternoon I left work early without telling her. I parked a few houses down and walked home, staying low so the door camera wouldn't catch me. I let myself in quietly through the back. The house was silent, too silent. My stomach twisted with anticipation. I turned on the living room camera, feed from my phone, and sure enough, there they were. Sitting on the couch, laughing, leaning into each other. She kissed him on the neck like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't burst in, I just watched. From the hallway behind the kitchen, I stood there and listened to her talk about me. "I think he knows something," she said. "He's been distant, cold, sleeping in the other room." "So what's the plan?" the guy asked. His voice was lower than I expected, almost charming in a smug kind of way. Natalie shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe I'll tell him I need space. Or that I'm not happy. Something to ease out of it before it blows up." I almost laughed. Ease out of it. Ease out of an 8-year marriage. I walked back out the door without them ever. Noticing I'd been there, I wasn't even mad anymore, just numb. But numb has a way of sharpening your focus. I knew what I had to do. That night, I went to dinner with my best friend Marcus. He had always been suspicious of Natalie, not outwardly, but I could tell from the way he asked about her with caution. Over plates of spicy chicken wings and whiskey sours, I told him everything. The camera footage, the GPS tracking, the missing condoms, all of it. He didn't say anything for a while. Then finally, he looked at me and said, "You've got her. Cold. So what's your move?" And that's when I realized I hadn't decided yet. I could confront her now, blow it all up, or I could set the stage for the most devastating reveal possible, something she'd never see coming, something that would strip away the illusion of control she thought she had. I wasn't going to yell or argue. I was going to destroy her fantasy, on my terms. So I came up with a plan. I started being affectionate. Again, slowly, just enough to throw her off. I made her coffee in the morning, complimented her dress, asked if she wanted to go out for dinner next weekend. The confusion on her face was priceless. She couldn't figure out what had changed, but I knew what I was doing. I wanted her to feel secure, comfortable, like the walls weren't closing in on her, like the lie she was living was working perfectly. Because when people feel safe, they make mistakes, and Natalie made one night. While she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't have touched it, but that night I picked it up and opened it. There were no passcodes between us. There had never been a need before. I opened her messages, scrolled through a few innocuous chats, then I found one labeled only with a heart emoji. That was him, and there it was. All the dirty talk, the plans, the memories. "Last time was incredible. Wish I could wake up next to you. Did you delete the camera stuff?" That last one stopped me. So he did know, she had told him. I took screenshots of everything, sent them to my own email, and then I sat there for a while, staring at the wall, feeling the weight of what was coming. Natalie came out of the shower minutes later, humming. She saw me sitting on the bed and smiled. "Everything okay?" I smiled back. "Yeah, everything's just fine." And it was because now I had everything. The texts, the photos, the videos, the tracking logs, the truth. The only thing left was the delivery. The next few days felt like the last steps before jumping off a cliff, but I needed to be sure that I had tied every loose end, sure that she wouldn't be able to twist the truth or play the victim. I didn't want a dramatic explosion. I wanted something cleaner, sharper, the kind of confrontation that cuts without raising your voice. So I did what I do best. I prepared. I printed out the messages she'd exchanged with him. Every "I miss you," every "he has no idea." I took screenshots from the camera footage and timestamped them. That line alone made me want to laugh now then. I put everything into a manila envelope neatly, professionally, like a file you'd hand to a judge. It wasn't just revenge, it was documentation. But I wasn't going to hand it over in the living room or while she made coffee in the kitchen. No, it needed to be somewhere public, somewhere neutral. I didn't trust myself to stay calm otherwise. So I made reservations at the same restaurant where we'd had our 5th anniversary dinner. I figured if I was going to end things, I told her I'd made dinner plans for us and that I wanted to reconnect. Her smile was cautious, like she was trying to guess my angle, but I could see the wheels turning. She probably thought the plan was working, that maybe she'd slipped out from under suspicion, that I was coming around again. I couldn't wait to watch that illusion collapse at 7 p.m. I walked into the restaurant and found a table near the back, dim lighting. A little quiet, perfect. Natalie arrived 5 minutes late, wearing a navy dress I'd always liked. But that version of us was gone, dead and buried. She sat across from me, her smile tight. "This is a surprise," she said, sipping her water. "I wasn't sure you were still interested in date nights." I nodded, playing the part. I figured it was time we talked. Honestly, her eyes flickered. "Okay, what's on your mind?" I didn't answer right away. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope, and slid it across the table. She stared at it like it was ticking. "What's this?" she asked, her voice suddenly very small. "Go ahead," I said. "Open it." She hesitated. Then she pulled the flap and began flipping through the contents. The photos, the messages, the footage stills. She didn't say a word, not for a long time, but I could see her face crumble, inch by inch. Her hands started shaking. Her breathing became uneven. She was trying to figure out if there was a way out, a way to explain, to deny, to twist. Finally, she looked up at me. "Daniel, no," I said, holding up a hand. "Don't. I don't want to hear a story. I don't want you to say it was a mistake, or that you were lonely, or that I pushed you away. I don't need a performance. I just wanted you to see what I know, so there's no confusion." She blinked fast. "So what happens now? You can contest it, or you can sign and make it easier. That's up to you." She reached across the table like she was going to touch my hand, and I pulled away. "You're serious?" she said, her voice cracking. I nodded. Dead serious. Tears welled up in her eyes, and part of me wanted to care. Part of me still remembered the woman I married. But the woman in front of me, she wasn't her anymore. She'd made her choices, and now she had to live with them. "But we've built a life," she whispered. "And you tore it down," I replied. We sat there in silence for what felt like forever. Around us, couples were clinking glasses, smiling, living in their own little worlds. I envied them in a way. I envied their naivety. Natalie wiped her face with a napkin. "What do I tell people?" "That's also up to you," I said. "I won't post the videos. I won't drag you through the mud. But if you try to twist the story or make me look like the villain, then yes, I'll show people everything." She flinched. "You recorded me. I had to know," I said. "And now I do." I stood up, left some cash for the drinks, and looked down at her one last time. "Goodbye, Natalie." She didn't move, just sat there, staring at the envelope like it might bite her. That night, I didn't sleep much. Even though the hardest part was over, the sadness hit me like a wave. Grief, anger, relief, it all tangled together. Ending a marriage, even a broken one, isn't like ripping off a Band-Aid. It's like amputation. You feel phantom pain for weeks, maybe longer. The next few days were quiet. Natalie tried texting a few times, then gave up. I got the paperwork from my lawyer. I didn't feel triumphant, just tired. Then came the part I wasn't expecting. People choosing sides, mutual friends. Reached out, some had heard, others were confused. Natalie had tried to do damage control, but there's only so much you can spin when someone has proof. Hard proof. She moved out by the end of the month. Took a few boxes, some clothes, and Cooper, our dog. I didn't fight her for him. I loved that dog, but I couldn't look at him without thinking of her. It was too raw, too fresh. After she left, I stood in the middle of the empty living room and just listened to the silence. For the first time in months, it didn't feel oppressive. It felt like clarity, like space, like a clean slate. I started rearranging the furniture, took down the framed wedding photo from the hallway, packed it in a box I planned to drop off. At her new place, the house felt lighter, like it was shedding her presence with every passing day, and me. I started going back to the gym. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages. I picked up a hobby I'd long abandoned, woodworking. Something about shaping raw, broken pieces into something new gave me a sense of control again. Something healing. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but it stopped controlling me. Slowly, I stopped waking up with a knot in my stomach. I stopped checking my phone for her texts. I stopped wondering what I did wrong, because now I knew it wasn't about what I lacked. It was about what she chose, and I finally chose myself. You'd think that once someone walks out of your life, especially someone who shattered your trust, things would instantly feel better. But the truth is, it's quieter. Not necessarily better, just still. The kind of stillness that lets every emotion echo a little longer than you'd like. Natalie had been gone for 3 weeks when I realized I hadn't thought about her for an entire day. It caught me off guard. I was making breakfast, eggs, and toast, nothing fancy, and I suddenly realized I didn't check my phone this morning hoping for an apology text. That was new and it felt good. Like I had finally turned down the volume on the chaos. I won't lie, the first couple weeks after she left were messy. I'd wake up expecting to hear her footsteps down the hallway. I'd instinctively reach for her side of the bed. The silence after those moments felt like someone had vacuumed the warmth out of the room. You don't realize how much of your life is muscle memory until it breaks down. But bit by bit, I replaced the memories with new routines. I started going on early morning walks. At first, they were just an excuse to get out of the house. But eventually they became a kind of therapy. Just me, the wind, and the distant hum of a world that didn't owe me any explanations. That quiet time helped me think. Really think. Without the noise of betrayal in the background, friends started coming around again too. It's funny how divorce makes people awkward. Some didn't know what to say, others gave the typical "you're better off" speech. And a few, well, they'd known something was wrong before I did, but they never said anything. I don't blame them. Most people don't want to get in the middle of someone else's wreckage. But the friends who stuck around, they didn't try to fix me, they just listened. That mattered more than they'll ever know. One night I had a few of them over for poker and beer. Nothing crazy, just guys being guys. And at one point during the evening, one of them asked, if she apologized tomorrow, would you take her back? Everyone went quiet, eyes on me. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I knew the answer without hesitation. No, I said. She broke something in me that can't be patched up with an apology. And if I ever did take her back, I'd spend every day wondering when it would happen again. That's no way to live. And it wasn't. Forgiveness is tricky. People act like it's something you owe someone after they hurt you. But I've learned that forgiveness is more for you than them. It's not about saying what they did was okay. It's about deciding that their actions won't define your future. So no, I didn't forgive Natalie for her sake. I forgave her, so I could finally stop carrying the weight of her choices. I never sent the video to anyone, never shared the texts, never exposed her to our circle of friends or her family. Not because I was trying to be noble, but because revenge started to feel like a chain. I didn't want to tie myself to her any longer than I had to. Let her live with what she did. That was enough. Months passed, life moved forward. My house started to feel like mine again. I painted the walls in the living room, bought a new coffee table, even adopted a cat. Leo. Weird how comforting a small animal can be when everything else feels like it's been flipped upside down. Leo didn't care about drama. He just wanted snacks and sunbeams. Around the 6-month mark, I got a call from Natalie's sister. I hadn't spoken to her since everything went down. She's not doing well, she said quietly. She lost her job, her apartment, and, well, she's kind of spiraling. I didn't know how to respond at first. Part of me felt a twinge of sympathy. The other part felt nothing. Just an empty acknowledgement. I'm sorry to hear that, I told her, but I can't help her. Not anymore. She paused. She obbed. Said you were cold, that you didn't even let her explain. She had 5 months to explain, I said. She didn't use a single day of it. That was the end of that call. I wasn't bitter. I was just done. Done trying to make sense of someone who didn't value honesty. Done waiting for a version of her that no longer existed. Done being the only one who tried to hold things together by the time our divorce papers were finalized. I didn't feel relief or sorrow. I just felt clear, like someone had wiped the fog off the mirror after a hot shower. For the first time in over a year, I saw myself again. A little older, a little tougher, but still here. I went on my first date about a year later. It was awkward, hilariously awkward. I kept looking for red flags, measuring every word she said, overthinking everything. But it wasn't about replacing Natalie. It was about rediscovering what it felt like to talk to someone. Without a shadow hanging over the conversation, she wasn't the one, and that was okay. I wasn't ready for the one. I was just ready to live again. Now, when I look back at the moment I opened her drawer and saw that box of condoms, I realized that was the beginning of the end. But it was also the beginning of my rebirth, because that box wasn't just evidence of infidelity. It was a wake-up call. It reminded me that love without trust is just routine dressed up in pretty words. Today, I'm in a much better place. My life is simpler, cleaner. I laugh more. I sleep better. I've even started writing in a journal, something I never did before. Just little reflections, nothing fancy, but they help me track my growth. The other day I wrote, "You don't always get closure. Sometimes peace is just accepting that the other person isn't sorry and being okay with that." Natalie? I don't know what she's doing now. I don't keep tabs on her. She's a chapter in my life, not the whole story. And while that chapter ended painfully, it was necessary. Some endings break you, others set you free. Mine did both. So, to anyone reading this or hearing my story, if you're stuck in something that feels wrong, trust your gut. You don't need all the evidence to know when something's broken. And if you've been betrayed, don't let it steal your softness. Let it sharpen your boundaries, not harden your heart, because someday you'll wake up and realize you're okay. Maybe even better than okay. You're free, and that's a story worth living. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more of these stories.